Raymond Hale was a man accustomed to bending the world to his will. A billionaire tech magnate, he had launched companies that revolutionized entire industries, from artificial intelligence to clean energy. Yet despite all his successes, there was one battle he couldn't win, one problem that gnawed at him like a shadow he could never shake. It wasn't a business rival, nor a financial crisis. It was his dog, Brutus. Brutus was a giant of a mastiff, rescued from a horrific life of abuse and neglect. When Hale first met him at a shelter, the dog was a trembling mass of anxiety, his eyes darting with fear. Hale saw potential beneath the scars and decided to give Brutus a second chance. But as weeks turned into months, Brutus's behavior worsened. His anxiety exploded into violent outbursts, barking uncontrollably, lunging at visitors, and destroying furniture in moments of panic. Hale spared no expense. He hired top animal behaviorists, trainers with decades of experience, and even brought in specialists from around the world. Yet every attempt to soothe Brutus failed. The dog's mistrust ran too deep, and the expensive treatments and equipment collected dust. Hale's frustration grew, his patience thinning. One particularly bad night changed everything. Brutus, overwhelmed by a thunderstorm, escaped his enclosure and caused serious damage to the mansion. Hale realized that no one had the key to calming Brutus. Not money, not expertise, not technology. He needed something else. The next morning, at a high-profile event promoting his new animal welfare foundation, Hale made an unexpected announcement. In front of flashing cameras and reporters, he laid down the gauntlet. "I'm offering $1 million to anyone who can calm my dog. No strings, no catch, just a real solution." The news rippled around the world like wildfire. Social media exploded with speculation and excitement. Animal trainers from all corners of the globe reached out. The challenge was irresistible. Could anyone succeed where the best had failed? Meanwhile, in a small town hundreds of miles away, 12-year-old Lily Gardner sat quietly on the couch, watching the news with her mother. Lily was different from most children her age. Diagnosed with autism as a toddler, she saw the world through a lens of sensory sensitivity and quiet reflection. Social interactions were often overwhelming, but animals, especially dogs, were a different story. They understood her in ways people never could. Lily's mother, Jane, glanced at the screen and chuckled. "Maybe you should try it, Lily. Calm the billionaire's dog and win $1 million." Lily's gaze didn't leave the television. "Without hesitation," she said softly, "I can calm his dog." Jane looked surprised. "You think you can?" Lily nodded quietly, her expression steady. Jane knew Lily's love for animals was something special. Despite the challenges her daughter faced with communication and social cues, she had a rare gift for connecting with dogs. At home, Lily's gentle touch and calm presence had a magical effect on their own small rescue dog, Daisy, who was shy and fearful. When other children ran away from noisy dogs, Lily was the one they trusted. The next days were filled with a quiet determination. Jane contacted the team handling the Billionaire's challenge, sending videos of Lily gently comforting dogs at local shelters. The response was slow and skeptical. After all, Brutus was no ordinary dog, and the stakes were sky high. But something about Lily's calmness and the way she approached animals sparked curiosity. Hale's team decided to take a chance. They invited Lily and Jane to Hale's estate for a private meeting. A chance to try, just once, if the girl could do what no one else had. Raymond Hale didn't expect much. In his mind, the challenge was more a publicity stunt than a real hope. But as he watched the quiet girl enter the room, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity. Perhaps, just perhaps, this gentle child held a secret no one else had found. Lily Gardner's world was quiet, not by choice, but by the nature of how she experienced everything. The small Midwestern town she lived in was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and stories. Except Lily's story was quieter than most. Diagnosed with autism at a young age, she often struggled to find words or express herself in ways others understood. But animals, especially dogs, were her refuge. Her mother, Jane, was both her biggest supporter and protector. Raising Lily alone had been a journey filled with both joy and challenges. Jane understood that Lily's silence wasn't absence but presence, a different way of engaging with the world, especially with creatures who didn't speak words but spoke through touch, presence, and patience. When the news about billionaire Raymond Hale's challenge broke on television, Jane half joked, "Maybe you should try calming that dog for $1 million, Lily." She watched her daughter carefully, not expecting a response. But Lily's eyes, usually distant and absorbed in her own thoughts, locked onto the screen. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "I can help him." Jane felt a surge of hope mixed with disbelief. Could her daughter, who rarely spoke to strangers and was overwhelmed by loud noises and crowds, really be the answer to a problem that had baffled experts? She had seen Lily's quiet magic with animals before, the way frightened shelter dogs would calm down the moment Lily sat near them, how her steady hands and calm presence made even the most skittish animals relax. Determined, Jane began recording videos of Lily at the local animal shelter. Without commands or training, Lily simply sat quietly as dogs barked and jumped around her. Slowly, one by one, the dogs stopped and settled near her. Volunteers whispered about the mysterious calm Lily seemed to bring. Jane sent the videos to Hale's team, hoping they would take notice. At first, there was silence. The billionaire's world was filled with experts, professionals who scoffed at the idea that a child, especially one who didn't fit the usual mold, could tame Brutus. But Lily's videos were different. There was no fancy equipment, no commands, just genuine, patient connection. Hale's assistants grew curious. They asked Jane to bring Lily for a meeting at Hale's estate. Jane hesitated, worried about how overwhelming it would be for her daughter to travel to such a grand, unfamiliar place. But Lily nodded eagerly, her own quiet determination shining through. The journey to the billionaire's mansion was a world away from Lily's familiar town. Towering gates, polished floors, and flashing cameras were intimidating. Lily clung tightly to her mother's hand, her heart pounding, not from fear, but from the overload of new sights and sounds. Inside, Raymond Hale watched from a distance, skeptical but intrigued. This was not the confident trainers or aggressive dog handlers he was used to. This was a small, quiet girl who barely spoke. The first meeting was tense. Brutus, sensing the strange environment and unfamiliar visitors, snarled and barked fiercely. The trainers flinched, stepping back in frustration. But Lily sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and closed her eyes. She began humming a soft, steady tune, something only she knew. The room's noise seemed to dull as Brutus's eyes fixed on her. His aggressive posture softened, his barking slowed, and he cautiously took a step closer. Everyone held their breath. For the first time in months, Brutus didn't lunge or growl. He lay down at Lily's feet, resting his giant head on her lap. Raymond Hale's eyebrows lifted in surprise. Could this girl really be what he had been searching for? Jane saw something she had never seen before, a spark of hope in her daughter's eyes. Lily had found a way in. The day Lily and her mother arrived at Raymond Hale's sprawling estate was unlike anything the quiet girl had ever experienced. Towering iron gates, manicured gardens, and sleek black SUVs lined the driveway. Security guards in crisp uniforms scrutinized their every move. For a girl who preferred calm and predictability, it was overwhelming, but Lily was determined. Jane held her daughter's hand tightly, sensing the flood of new sensations hitting Lily all at once. The sharp scent of freshly cut grass mixed with the faint hum of distant traffic, the cool marble floors beneath her feet, the bright, echoing hallways that seemed to swallow their footsteps. But Lily's gaze was steady, her breathing even. She was ready. Inside the opulent mansion, Raymond Hale was waiting. Dressed in a tailored suit, Hale carried the air of a man accustomed to control and certainty. But behind his sharp eyes was a flicker of doubt. He had seen many try and fail to calm Brutus. This young girl was an unknown, a wild card. The estate staff ushered them to a private room where Brutus was confined before their meeting. The dog was pacing nervously, his massive frame tense with pent-up energy. Hale watched as trainers and handlers flinched each time Brutus barked or lunged at the air. When Lily was led into the room, Brutus erupted into a furious bark, teeth bared and muscles coiled to strike. The room tensed. Even the seasoned trainers braced for a confrontation. But Lily, without a word, lowered herself to the floor and turned her back to the dog. She sat quietly, her hands resting gently in her lap. The barking intensified for a moment, then slowed. Something about Lily's calm presence seemed to puzzle Brutus. The giant dog's growls softened to curious whines. He edged closer, sniffing the air. Raymond Hale exchanged a glance with his chief trainer, both stunned. No one had ever seen Brutus respond this way. For nearly half an hour, Lily sat perfectly still, humming a quiet melody under her breath. Brutus inched closer, eventually lying down beside her, his massive head resting near her knees. The transformation was subtle but profound. Where there had been chaos, now there was calm. Hale, who had once dismissed the challenge as a stunt, found himself leaning forward, watching the scene unfold with growing respect. The news cameras outside would capture the moment later, but right now, this was a private breakthrough. Over the next few days, Lily and Brutus were given more time together under close supervision. The sessions were carefully recorded and studied. Lily never raised her voice or used commands. Instead, she relied on patience, rhythm, and quiet reassurance. Her autism, often seen as a barrier, seemed to be her greatest strength here. Where others tried to dominate or control Brutus, Lily simply accepted him as he was, flawed, scared, and searching for peace. Each day, the dog grew calmer. He no longer barked or lunged when Lily entered the room. He followed her movements with relaxed eyes, sometimes leaning into her touch as if to say, "I trust you." Hale's confidence grew. He began to see that Lily was not just a lucky child, but someone with an extraordinary gift, a natural connection to animals that transcended traditional methods. News of the quiet girl who could calm the billionaire's unruly dog spread quickly. Reporters camped outside the estate gates, eager for interviews. But Lily remained reserved, finding solace only in the silent language she shared with Brutus. Jane watched her daughter blossom in ways she hadn't expected. The experience at Hale's estate was more than just a challenge. It was a journey of discovery and healing for both Lily and the dog who once seemed impossible to tame. For Raymond Hale, it was a lesson in humility. He had conquered markets and technology, but now this small girl was teaching him that some victories required gentleness, patience, and the courage to listen. The room was tense the moment Brutus was brought in. The massive mastiff's muscles rippled with barely contained energy, his sharp eyes darting wildly from one person to another. His loud, sharp barks filled the air, shaking the walls and sending a wave of unease over the trainers and staff gathered around. Despite months of effort and thousands of dollars spent on training and therapy, this was the closest thing to chaos that anyone had ever witnessed inside Raymond Hale's estate. Raymond stood back, arms crossed, watching with a mixture of frustration and skepticism. This was the moment he had both feared and hoped for, the true test of whether Lily, the quiet girl with autism from a small town, could do what no expert had managed. Lily, however, seemed unaffected by the turmoil. Without hesitation, she sat down on the floor with the calm of someone who had known struggle all her life. She didn't look at Brutus directly. Instead, she turned her back to the roaring dog and closed her eyes. From her lips came a low, steady hum, a gentle melody that seemed to flow naturally, as if it had been inside her all along. The room's noise continued for a moment, bristles of tension hanging thick in the air. Then something unexpected happened. Brutus's barking softened. His growls turned into uncertain whines. The giant dog took a hesitant step forward, his enormous paws patting softly on the floor. His eyes, once wild and fearful, now fixed on the still figure of Lily. Everyone watched in silence, holding their breath. The trainers who had once flinched at every snap of Brutus's jaws now exchanged surprised glances. Could it be true? Could this quiet girl be breaking through years of fear and aggression? Brutus slowly lowered himself to the ground, his massive frame settling next to Lily. She didn't move. She stayed perfectly still, humming softly as the dog rested his head near her knees. Her fingers twitched lightly, just enough to brush against his coarse fur. Raymond's skepticism began to melt into awe. This wasn't just luck or coincidence. This was connection, the kind of profound, wordless bond that few could understand, but everyone recognized when they saw it. For Lily, this moment was a breakthrough, not only for Brutus but for herself. Throughout her life, she had often felt isolated by her autism, misunderstood by the world around her. But here, with Brutus at her side, she felt a sense of peace and acceptance she hadn't known before. Her humming was a language all her own, a signal of calm that Brutus seemed to understand instinctively. The following hours were spent carefully observing the dog and girl. Hale's team was amazed to see Brutus remain relaxed in Lily's presence, even when other people entered the room. Normally reactive and anxious, Brutus now followed Lily's quiet lead, his breathing steady and his eyes soft. When it was time to leave, Brutus lingered by her side, reluctant to part. The dog's tail gave a slow wag, a gesture previously unseen in months. For the first time, Raymond saw not a fierce beast but a gentle companion. That night, Hale sat alone in his office, replaying the day's events in his mind. He had spent millions trying to fix this problem, yet it had taken a quiet, determined girl to find the answer. He realized the limits of money and expertise when faced with pure empathy and patience. Word of Lily's success spread quickly beyond the estate. Journalists clamored for interviews, and social media buzzed with admiration and curiosity. Many doubted the story. How could a young girl with no formal training tame a dog like Brutus? But those who understood autism and animal behavior saw something deeper, a rare gift bridging worlds that rarely met. Lily's mother, Jane, was both proud and protective. She knew her daughter's abilities were exceptional, but also fragile. The pressure of fame and expectations could overwhelm Lily, who thrived in calm and quiet. Meanwhile, Brutus's transformation was undeniable. The dog, who once terrified everyone around him, was beginning to trust, to soften, and to heal. As the sun set over Hale's estate, one thing was clear. This was only the beginning of a journey neither Lily nor Brutus could have imagined. And for Raymond Hale, it was a humbling reminder that sometimes the greatest solutions come from the most unexpected places. The days that followed Lily's first encounter with Brutus were filled with cautious optimism. The Billionaire's sprawling estate, once a place of tension and frustration, was slowly transforming into a sanctuary of quiet hope. Raymond Hale, usually impatient and demanding, began to soften as he watched the unlikely friendship develop between the young girl and his once unruly dog. Livy's approach was unlike any training method Hale had ever seen. She didn't command Brutus or try to impose her will. Instead, she observed him with deep patience, respecting his boundaries and rhythms. Some days, she simply sat silently beside him for hours, letting him decide when he was ready to engage. Her humming continued to be a soothing constant, a steady, calming thread woven through their sessions. Brutus seemed to respond not just to the sound, but to Lily's entire presence. The dog, who had once barked and lunged uncontrollably, now sought her out, nudging her hand gently for reassurance. Jane, watching from the sidelines, felt a surge of pride and relief. She had always known her daughter's sensitivity to animals was special, but seeing it heal a dog as troubled as Brutus was beyond anything she had imagined. Yet she remained protective, careful not to overwhelm Lily with too much attention or expectation. Raymond Hale, too, was learning a lesson in humility. His world of high stakes and rapid success was foreign to the slow, delicate work of building trust. But day by day, he saw the value of patience and understanding. One afternoon, during a session in the estate's sunlit garden, Brutus made a small but significant step. Lily had placed a hand on the dog's broad shoulder, and for the first time, Brutus rested his head fully in her lap without pulling away. The moment was quiet but profound, a symbol of the fragile trust now between them. The estate's trainers began to take notes, fascinated by Lily's methods. They saw that traditional commands and corrections only increased Brutus's anxiety, while Lily's gentle presence calmed the dog in ways they couldn't replicate. Hale even asked Lily to teach the trainers her techniques, hoping to help them understand how to care for Brutus in her absence. Lily's world was expanding, but so were the challenges. The media attention grew, and reporters pressed for interviews with the girl who tamed a billionaire's dog. Jane shielded her daughter carefully, mindful of Lily's need for quiet and routine. In the evenings after the cameras left, Jane and Lily would sit together and talk softly about the day. Lily rarely spoke much, but when she did, it was with honesty and focus. She talked about how Brutus made her feel safe, understood, and connected. Meanwhile, Brutus's transformation didn't go unnoticed by the estate staff. The once feared mastiff now greeted them with a calm wag of his tail, even allowing strangers to approach under Lily's watchful eye. The dog who had been a symbol of chaos was becoming a symbol of healing. Raymond Hale found himself reflecting on what this experience meant. The challenge he had issued as a publicity stunt was now a deeply personal journey. He admired Lily's courage and quiet strength and recognized that sometimes the most powerful solutions come from listening, not commanding. As summer faded into fall, the bond between Lily and Brutus grew stronger. Their story, once a headline, was becoming a testament to the power of empathy, patience, and connection. And though the journey was far from over, one thing was clear. Lily was not just calming a dog, she was changing a life. The news of Lily's success spread like wildfire. What began as a quiet moment between a girl and a dog soon exploded into headlines, social media posts, and viral videos. The story of a young girl with autism calming a billionaire's notoriously aggressive dog captivated people worldwide. It was a story of hope, of breaking barriers, and of the incredible power of patience. Raymond Hale, who had initially framed the challenge as a publicity stunt, now faced the reality of a media frenzy. Reporters, bloggers, and news anchors flocked to his estate, eager to witness the phenomenon for themselves. Cameras captured Lily's gentle interactions with Brutus, her quiet humming, and the dog's calm demeanor. The contrast was stark, an intimidating beast tamed by a soft-spoken child. Despite the spotlight, Lily remained the same, reserved, focused, and seemingly untouched by the excitement swirling around her. Jane made sure to protect her daughter from overwhelming attention, limiting interviews and shielding her from intrusive questions. To Lily, the noise was distracting. What mattered was the connection she shared with Brutus. At the same time, the public's response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from parents of children with autism, animal lovers, and people who had faced their own struggles. Many saw Lily as a symbol of resilience and empathy. Her story inspired conversations about the power of kindness and the unique gifts within people often misunderstood. Raymond Hale, witnessing the impact firsthand, decided to leverage the moment. He announced a charity initiative dedicated to supporting autism awareness and animal rescue organizations. The Calm Hearts Foundation aimed to provide resources for children like Lily and shelter dogs like Brutus, blending the two causes that had brought them together. As the foundation took shape, Lily was invited to speak at events, though her talks were brief and carefully managed. She preferred to communicate through her actions rather than words, showing audiences how patience and understanding could change lives. Back at the estate, the work with Brutus continued. Lily's bond with the dog deepened, their trust growing stronger each day. She introduced small routines, soft music, slow movements, and gentle touches that helped Brutus maintain his calm. Trainers began to adopt her methods, realizing that the dog's healing depended on more than commands. It needed compassion. However, not everyone was convinced. Skeptics questioned whether Lily's success was a fluke or if Brutus's behavior was temporary. Some argued that no child, regardless of talent, could truly manage a dog as challenging as Brutus. These doubts fueled more media coverage, turning the story into a cultural debate about animal behavior, autism, and the nature of healing. Lily, unaware of the controversies, remained focused on Brutus. One afternoon, as the golden light of late summer spilled into the garden, she sat beside him and gently stroked his fur. Brutus looked up at her with calm eyes, and Lily smiled softly, a rare, genuine expression that spoke volumes. Jane stood nearby, watching her daughter with tears in her eyes. The journey had been difficult, filled with moments of uncertainty and fear. But here, in this quiet garden, everything felt right. The challenge was far from over, and the final test was looming. Raymond Hale had invited experts, journalists, and animal behaviorists to witness a live demonstration. The question on everyone's mind was simple. Could Lily keep Brutus calm under pressure? The stakes were high. For Lily, it was more than just winning a challenge. It was proving that her way, the quiet, patient approach, was powerful enough to overcome even the toughest obstacles. As the day of the demonstration approached, tension mixed with anticipation. The world was watching, and Lily was ready. The grand hall of Raymond Hale's estate was transformed into an arena of sorts. Lights flashed, cameras rolled, and a crowd of experts, journalists, and animal behaviorists filled the room, eager to witness the moment they've been hearing about for weeks. Could Lily truly keep Brutus calm under intense pressure? Raymond stood nearby, a mixture of pride and nerves etched on his face. The challenge had started as a gamble, a public spectacle, but now it had become a personal mission. Everyone was watching, but more than that, Lily was proving something greater about empathy, patience, and strength beyond words. Lily entered the room quietly, her small frame barely noticeable amid the flashing cameras and bustling crowd. Jane followed close behind, steady and protective, a quiet anchor for her daughter. Lily's eyes briefly scanned the room, her usual calmness tested by the unfamiliar noise and faces, but she focused on one thing: Brutus. The massive mastiff was brought in, eyes alert and muscles tense, sensing the energy in the room. The handlers expected barking, lunging, maybe even aggression, but Brutus, seemingly aware of the gravity of the moment, hesitated. Lily moved forward slowly, keeping her movements deliberate and gentle. She took a seat on the polished floor, just as she had done countless times before, and began humming her soft melody, a thread of calm weaving through the chaos. At first, Brutus barked sharply, a reflex to the crowd's noises and flashing lights. The room held its breath, but then something remarkable happened. His bark softened to a whimper. His gaze locked on Lily's steady presence. Slowly, he lowered himself to the ground, inching toward her. The audience watched in stunned silence as Brutus rested his heavy head in Lily's lap. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the moment, the impossible bond between girl and dog, calm amidst the storm. For nearly an hour, Lily and Brutus sat together, undisturbed by the surrounding excitement. Lily's humming never faltered. Her hands remained gentle, soothing. The dog's breathing slowed, his body relaxed. Experts whispered among themselves. This wasn't just a trick or a lucky moment. It was genuine, profound. When the demonstration ended, Raymond stepped forward and declared Lily the winner of the challenge. The $1 million prize was awarded, but more importantly, the world had witnessed something extraordinary. Lily's victory wasn't just about taming a dog, it was about changing perceptions. Her success challenged assumptions about autism, about strength, and about the quiet power of empathy. The media frenzy continued, but Jane kept Lily grounded. "This is just the beginning," she told her daughter. "There's so much more ahead." And there was. Offers poured in, speaking engagements, charity partnerships, even a book deal. But Lily remained true to herself, always preferring action over words, connection over spectacle. Brutus, once a symbol of fear and frustration, became a gentle ambassador for healing and hope. Together, Lily and Brutus toured schools, shelters, and hospitals, showing others the transformative power of patience and kindness. Raymond Hale, inspired by the journey, expanded his foundation's mission. He dedicated resources to support children with autism and promote humane animal care, proving that compassion could bridge worlds and change lives. Lily's story became a beacon, not just a tale of a girl who calmed a dog, but a reminder that sometimes the quietest voices speak the loudest truths. The months following Lily's victory unfolded like a dream neither she nor her family had dared to imagine. The once quiet girl who had stepped up to a billionaire's challenge now found herself at the center of a movement, one that stretched far beyond the walls of Raymond Hale's estate. The Calm Hearts Foundation, launched with Hale's backing, blossomed into a vibrant force for change. It supported autism programs across the country, created safe spaces for children to connect with animals, and funded research into the unique bonds between humans and pets. Lily's gentle methods became a blueprint, something simple yet powerful enough to reach hearts and minds alike. Jane watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and awe. Lily, once hesitant and overwhelmed by the world's chaos, now radiated quiet confidence. Though still reserved, she had discovered a purpose that gave her life meaning beyond what anyone had imagined. Brutus, too, had transformed. The dog who had once terrified everyone became a living symbol of hope. He accompanied Lily to events, sitting calmly beside her, a gentle giant whose presence reminded people of the healing power of trust. Schools invited Lily to speak, not to deliver speeches, but to share her story through demonstrations and interactions. Children who struggled to express themselves found inspiration in her example. Autism organizations hailed her as a role model, someone who showed that differences could be strengths. Raymond Hale, once a hard-nosed businessman, found himself changed in unexpected ways. He admitted publicly that Lily had taught him more about patience and kindness than any boardroom ever could. His foundation's focus on empathy and healing shifted the conversation about success and power. The media attention gradually softened into a steady stream of interest and support. Lily and Jane learned to navigate the spotlight with grace, always prioritizing the girl's needs and well-being. They refused to let fame overshadow the deeper mission. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves swirled outside the foundation's new headquarters, Lily sat with Jane and Raymond, reflecting on how far they had come. "It's not just about calming Brutus," Lily said quietly. "It's about helping everyone find calm, even when the world feels loud and scary." Jane smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined." Raymond nodded. "And this is only the beginning." Plans were underway to expand the foundation's reach internationally, to bring the message of calm, patience, and empathy to communities around the world. Lily was set to visit schools in remote areas, shelters in need, and hospitals where children longed for connection. Through it all, Lily remained grounded by the quiet strength that had carried her through the challenge. She found joy in small moments. Brutus's gentle nudge, the smile of a child who learned to trust, the soft hum that soothed more than just a dog. Her journey had started with a single challenge, one that many thought impossible. But Lily's story became proof that courage and compassion could break barriers, heal wounds, and inspire a better world. As the sun set over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the foundation's walls, Lily sat beside Brutus once more. Her humming filled the room, steady and calm. The dog rested his head in her lap, peaceful and content. The challenge had ended, but the story was far from over. Together, Lily and Brutus were ready to face whatever came next, with hearts full of hope and a quiet power that could change the world.